Good evening, everybody, and welcome to All Things Brunswick. With us again this week for a second part in the segment of soldier suicide. We have with us Steve Rice, and we have with us Gay and Kevin. How do you pronounce your last name?
Murga.
Murga. And thank you all so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting us back.
Once again, I am happy to say that my co-host is my friend Todd Osborne. Thank you, Todd, for joining us again this week. And we talked last week about the problem with soldier suicide. Gay and Kevin lost their son to such, and we shared some pretty heavy-duty emotional stuff last week. For that, I thank you very much for being with us. I think folks realize that it is something that nobody wants to contend with. And so your goal or goals, all of you, is to work to prevent this. Is that correct?
Yes.
Education and prevention.
Right.
Absolutely.
And to make this nation aware of the crisis that we're under.
Right. Okay. And I think that maybe we should start out with a few statistics. Maybe I can get Steve to help us with that.
Okay. All right, Mary. Big task. The VA in February or January of 2023 announced a new policy. The policy was for veterans, and it was specific for veterans, not active duty, was if you were acute suicidal, that you could go to a VA center, you could go to an emergency room and seek help. Most emergency rooms, if you walked in and you said, I'm a veteran and you're suicidal, the ability for them to help was pretty minimum. The VA, and most veterans will admit that they hate going to the VA because the wait time is atrocious.
Right.
They are not taken care of the way that they feel that they should be taken care of. So the idea that the VA, in the snap of a finger, has changed this policy and that it's going to work. Well, in the first year, they had almost 50,000 veterans come to the VA or to emergency rooms with being self-declared suicidal that needed
Across
help.
the nation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Across the nation.
50,000 vets
Wow.
entered various local hospitals and
My
care centers.
word.
And we asked Dozier, so if you had a veteran come in and they're suicidal, how do you deal with it? And we really didn't get a whole lot of answer because they don't have an answer. The hope is that they don't have someone walk in, but the reality is that within Brunswick County, within North Carolina alone, you look at the numbers and the statistics, and we'll go back to over 600,000 veterans. If you run the numbers and the percentages of the veteran suicide rate, that means we're going to have a lot of veterans in North Carolina that are either suicidal or are going to attempt suicide. And now's the time for action. We have used, it's our feeling we can't bring Austin Murga back, but we can use his memory to help stop soldier suicide, to help create awareness within the community. We've gone outside the community. We've spent time seeking meetings with Senator Budd's office, with Congressman Greg Murphy up in Greenville. Mm-hmm. Congressman Murphy will tell you in his weekly newsletters he's got 76,000 veterans in his district. Wow. He's got 4 active bases. He's got 29 counties that are served by Vidant Health, and they know they have issues and problems, and the federal government can't answer all of them, so they're looking for resources. Stop soldier suicide is one of them. Senator Budd, when we met with Senator Budd, Gay's point to Senator Budd was, don't assume that when troops come back that they're okay. Don't have them sign off on a piece of paper that says, yep, I'm okay. I don't need any help.
Do they do that?
basically that's
Oh my goodness.
so
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
so assume the worst. Give them treatment. Assume that there's a high percentage that are suffering from some level of PTSD, what they've seen, what they've done, what they've been involved with. And it's in everyone's best interest to assume the worst, be proactive in the way you approach those. And if you thought of them as an employee, as a Fortune 500 company might look at an employee and say, I've invested hundreds of hours in training. I don't want to lose that individual. We should feel the same way about our military. We should look at them as resources. We should treat them as valuable assets, and we should assume the worst and give them the treatment proactively that will probably save an awful lot of lives.
And that they deserve.
Yep. The VA is the
Correct.
first one to tell you that they can't handle it. They've got grant programs, they've got things going on to try to get other resources. The reality is some companies or organizations like Stop Soldier Suicides concerned about the amount of red tape that getting a grant from the federal government entails, and that it's going to reduce their ability to deliver quality services to the veterans in active duty. So the vet is trying to do things, but there's a lot of strings attached. But we believe, and through the fundraiser that we run every September at St. James, we've gotten great support from the community of St. James, from
As well as
Troon,
the town of Southport,
the merchants in Southport.
Merchants of Southport.
the merchants.
They
They're
have-
very generous.
They have done wonderful things. You look at when we started this tournament 4 years ago. Steve and I and two other friends, we put this thing together on the back of a bar napkin, as I always say. None of us have ever run a tournament, but we knew we had to do something to get the word out on suicide and what's happening. But one thing, not everyone who has PTSD is suicidal. So just because you have PTSD,
Correct.
you're not suicidal. So that's clear. And Gay will talk about the brain
That's
injuries.
the reason why I hate the title, but I love the organization.
Right.
I hate the title Stop Soldier Suicide because PTSD doesn't necessarily mean that you have suicide ideation. StopSoldierSuicide.org would prefer you to speak with them before you get to that point. That's why I hate the title, but I love the organization. And let me share with
I
you.
want to talk about the golf tournament.
Okay.
Okay. so stop soldier suicide is a 501(c)(3). Okay.
501c3 organization.
Well, I was
yes.
putting it between both of us here. A 501(c)(3).
C3.
C3. Okay. So everything they do is volunteer with volunteer money. So what we do is raise, and I say we, it's collectively as a group, we raise money to keep the phones going 24/7, 365 days a year.
This is your major
Fundraiser.
fundraiser.
Major
of the
fundraiser.
year.
The golf
Absolutely.
tournament
Once
and
a
silent
year.
auction.
Yep, once a year.
September at St. James
Yeah.
Plantation.
In fact, this year it's September 7th. It's our it'll be our son's
Four-year mark.
fourth year anniversary date. So our first year we raised what,
$28,000.
$28,000, and this is during
wonderful.
COVID, and we had 70.
90. Approximately 90 golfers.
You can tell the CPA. 90 golfers, and then
Our second year, 120 golfers. And we raised approximately $57,000. And Blue Star Moms of Brunswick County assisted us, and they raised $30,000 for
They're
a total of
wonderful.
90.
I tell you, Blue Star
Yes,
Moms,
they are wonderful.
they support Gold Star families, and they've
Yeah.
done this last year.
We raised $107,000
$107,000
with
Goodness.
180 golfers.
and it cost us to run the tournament $10,000 by the help of
Approximately 20 people.
Yeah, 20 people.
20
but
volunteers.
The money came from
And the
Southport,
kindness.
Southport merchants,
Southport merchants.
Troon Gulf,
And the residents of St. James
and the residents
Plantation.
of St. James.
So you have a golf tournament and a silent auction.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, and your auction items, where are they for?
It's on a website.
Yeah.
Okay, so
do.
you
That we
view it
post.
on a website.
We have various things, including merchant gift cards, merchant baskets out of Southport,
Houses in New York, houses in Duck,
Airbnbs.
and lots of bourbon.
Lots of bourbon.
Bourbon you cannot get in Brunswick County. So all the Buffalo Trace, the Weller, all of those things. Those believe me, people flock to those. But the
Guess
point
I know what I'm bidding on.
Yeah, really. Yeah, you have to outbid me. But
Oh, and art. These
The art merchants.
Southport's art
Yes,
tissue
they are
teachers
big in
donate a
that.
lot of
Yes.
art.
it's just amazing
For our silent
how
auction.
a small community of downtown Southport.
Can help us raise $107,000.
We also need to mention the Southport woodworkers. These guys, they've got they don't bid on the bourbon, so they're woodworking. And the bowls that they do with the challenge dollars or medallions, the shot glass trays. It's really incredible the work that they do and their contribution to the auction.
Yeah,
Correct.
we've had this is our third year, and every year the South our St. James Realty Company.
Yep.
This is their third year, so we're getting these people who are sponsoring year after year
Yep.
because they know of the crisis,
Right.
and more importantly, I think the people in St. James know that Gay and I, we could have crawled up in a corner and hated life, hated everything that goes on because we lost our one and only child.
Right.
But our community has come together because it's such a high veteran community, and all we want to do is get the word out and save lives. The amount of people who have come up to us and spoken about, now there are people who will pull us aside. We were just at the Blue Star Moms concert at the Moose Lodge, and
On Long Beach Road,
on
in
Long-
Southport.
yeah, and on Southport. And I had two people come up. One pulled me aside and kind of whispered in my ear about the death of their child by suicide.
Oh.
Another person was not, suicide's a tough thing to talk about.
Certainly.
But they weren't, because we talk about it. I have a Vietnam veteran friend I met 4 years ago, and suffers from PTSD, and he was crying on my shoulder. And it's like, and so many people have come, because we're talking about it all the time. I mean, everywhere I go, you're going to see something. I have stop soldier suicide, stop soldier suicide, stop soldiers. I mean, because, and they know we talk about it. And so now people are coming out of that. All right, in the years ago, it was like, you don't talk about someone who had suicide.
Right.
But we didn't know you die because you die by suicide. You die by cancer. You don't catch suicide. You don't catch cancer.
Exactly.
It's that mental
Commit.
commit.
Suicide.
You don't commit suicide. Yes, you die by suicide. So I think Gay's going to talk statistics.
So let me just,
So let me share.
let me just in closing, specific to the tournament and the fundraiser. Every year we try to set new challenges. We got beat by a tournament that was run down in Atlanta last year. Turns out to be one of Austin's
Yeah, so that's
one of Austin's Joes.
Austin's
and
Superiors.
this is
Superiors, yeah.
so to Brunswick County residents and businesses. The challenge is we don't want to be beat by somebody down in Atlanta this
But-
year. But
But all their money is going. So we've through one of Austin's superiors
in the Army.
in the Army. He's doing one in
He's doing a
Atlanta.
golf fundraiser.
And thank you.
Golf tournament fundraiser.
Oh, it's turned into a comedy
but-
show now.
but-
All right, so Gay will finish it off.
but I
It's
mean,
entertaining.
but we are
Can you
seeking.
tell we've been married for 33 years and I
I
keep
know,
finishing,
wow.
completing his sentences?
But
Well, you cut me off.
but we are seeking additional sponsors this year.
Yep.
I mean, a big shout out to St. James Property, who's been a sponsor every year for us. Last year, Michael and Sons stepped up. Haygood Homes stepped up in a big way. West Shore Homes was also a good sponsor for us. But at the end of the day, if our message is heard, Stop Soldier Suicide needs more counselors. They need more people to answer the phone,
Right.
which takes money. Things don't happen by wishing they happen. So we'll put links in the stories so that you'll be able to reach out to us if you are interested in being a sponsor. If you're interested in participating, we usually fill up the 180 spots pretty quick. There's a lot of those golfers that probably should have stayed home. But that being said, we have a beer sponsor this year, which is a veteran-owned brewery. I mean, a lot of great things are happening, but we can always use more help and support from the community.
Sure.
Do you have a
Thank
local
you.
website for the golf tournament?
We
or
will.
for where people can go and
It'll be out probably within the next 3 weeks.
okay.
Great.
Yeah, we've had a website in the past, but they got a new back office, and as a result, we don't have a QR code and link set up right yet. But we will have it shortly.
Put Gay in charge of it. You'll have it by the end of the day.
That's right.
I'm going to turn the mic over to Gay
Yep.
now.
So Gay,
Keep your eyes peeled, folks, for this.
So, I'm not the one who phrased the expression that this is a national security crisis, and that's the reason why we three up here are so actively involved in raising funds for StopSoldierSuicide.org and for informing Brunswick County and the state and the nation as to this crisis. It's our Congress that in November of 2021 released this 19-page report entitled Reducing Military and Veteran Suicide. And they, in this report, indicated that it is a national security crisis. And why is, let me share with you some statistics. For one thing, I want the audience to realize that only 1% are joining the military branches. So we need these men and women. We need them very badly for the Putins of the world that want to take over our country. Okay, I am the first mama to say I hope we never go to war again. But this mama wants a strong military presence to keep the Putins off of our back. But let me share with you a couple of horrific statistics as to why this is a crisis. Duke University, right here in North Carolina, released a study, I believe in 2021, where our government often says 22 active military and vets are dying by suicide a year, and this has been going on for 20 plus years. Duke University's study indicated it's more actually like 44
A day.
a day. Okay. Well, one thing I know why the government's report is understated is because they do not include National Guard and the Reserve. And if you know anything about this 20-year war, every National Guard unit and every Reserve unit was called out for a deployment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so why such a serious problem now? Well, let me share with you a couple of reasons that substantiate why there is a crisis in America. One, we just finished the longest war this country has ever experienced. It was a 20-year war. Now, let me remind you, World War II, for example, lasted only 3.5 years. Vietnam War, 9 years. every war that this country has had also included a draft. This is the first war with no draft, and the first war that was so long, 20 years. So think about it for a moment. How does our government pull that off with no draft? It's called multiple deployments.
Exactly.
Okay? It is not uncommon. I'll use the word soldier generically. I mean all military branches, okay? But it is not uncommon for a soldier to be deployed 5, 10, 15 plus times. It is absolutely insane to think
Ridiculous.
that these soldiers are going to come back without PTS. Okay. Here's another reason that this 20-year war with no draft has had such a terrible impact on our soldiers. It has to do with all the IEDs and all the rocket-propelled elements that cause brain injury. And that's another thing I want to emphasize again. PTSD, military PTSD, is a brain injury. The other element, sadly, with this war is there's no reintegration program. And I've had this discussion, I'll call it an argument, with many high-ranking superiors there at Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty. There is no reintegration program. Their reintegration program consists of what they consider you're taking your leave, your vacation, okay? But even when my son's battalion of 4,500 soldiers returned from Afghanistan in March of 2020, they were all immediately released. Once they landed there at Fort Bragg, Fort Liberty, they were all immediately released to their homes, to their barracks, okay? And many of them could not take their vacation that they had in reserve for weeks, okay? So I don't understand how Fort Bragg says that is a reintegration program, okay?
Well, they signed.
But let me share with you, after 9, 10, 11, 12 months of being in a hostile territory, where this beautiful feature of our brain called the fight or flight mode kicks in 24/7. It's a beautiful feature, but it's not meant to be on for more than, let's say, 15 minutes. Okay, but when it's on 24/7 for 9 to 12 months, it literally does an injury to the brain. It literally shrinks certain parts of the brain due to all that cortisol being released in that fight or flight mode. And it doesn't matter if you're frontline fighting or if you're in logistics, okay? You know that any moment you go down any road in that 20-year war, you could die. It didn't matter if you knew you lay your head at your camp. You could die because of rocket-propelled missiles being thrown in. Matter of fact, the most recent 3 soldiers that died were in Saudi Arabia. They were in logistics. They were at their camp, okay? So they all know, frontline or not, that you can die. That's the reason why that fight or flight mode is constantly on, and it does brain injury. Here's the other thing that so talks about this specific 20-year war. Our culture has become very alienating. The easiest way I could explain this is that we can all relate to this fact through COVID, when COVID hit in 2020, how alienating that was on our culture and how we all read, heard, and felt depression and loneliness skyrocket, okay? It's toxic. We humans are not meant to be separated from ourselves. But that is our culture that we are in, and it darn tootin' is in the culture of our military, especially when they get out. Because remember, they're only the 1%, okay?
Right.
They feel alienated because they're only 1%. Okay, there's this beautiful book written by Sebastian Junger. It's called Tribe. And it explains in a very simple layman term why our culture is so toxic and how it's especially toxic and difficult on our active military and vets. And one beautiful illustration that he gives is Israel. Now, you know, in Israel, everyone has to join the army. All males, all females. Females, I believe, have to do at least 2.5 years. Males have to do at least 3.5 years, I believe. So they have 100% participation in the Army. We have 1% in all our active military, but they have 1% PTS. There's a reason for that, because they don't feel alienated, because they are all in that boat. They can all understand and relate to each other. Okay? That's another significant reason. The other reason is, I'll go back to the fact that it is a brain injury. And you know, Steve recently gave me this article, and I'm going to read parts of it.
Okay, before we get to that,
Yes?
if I may, we need to break a little bit and pay a couple bills.
Yes.
And then we were going to come back and see what Gay has to say about that. It's very interesting. So please stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. Conservative leadership is working in Brunswick County, the 5th lowest tax rate in the state, supporting veterans and law enforcement, expanding water and sewer infrastructure, successful job recruitment efforts to bring good jobs to Brunswick County. Vote to keep Brunswick County Commissioners Frank Williams and Mike Forte, 2 lifelong conservative small business owners working hard for us. Paid for by the Frank Williams Committee and the Committee to elect Mike Forte. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, Attorney at Law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Okay.
Welcome back to All Things Brunswick. We have with us tonight Chris Rice. Steve Rice, I'm sorry.
I know I look like a Chris.
I'm thinking about my son. And Kevin and Gay, our Gold Star parents. And before the break, you were about to read us a little something.
Yeah.
From
Thank you, Todd.
Yes, thank you, Todd. I came across this article that just broke my heart. And it's quite sad and pathetic and horrific. But I wanted to share with you pieces of it to emphasize how many positions within the military causes brain injuries, including PTSD, that our government is not addressing as strongly as they need to be. So it was an article that I got off of WRAL's website this March of this year. It's entitled Profound Damage Found in Maine's Gunman's Brain, possibly from grenades. And it goes on to say, now, sadly, this vet, obviously, due to his career in the Army, injured his brain so horrifically that he performed one of the worst mass killings there in Maine last year.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I believe he killed 18 people
Yes.
in October of 2023. And
In
his
Lewiston,
brain
Maine.
was sent to a research lab, Boston specifically, Boston University's CTE Center, a lab which is known for its pioneering work documenting chronic traumatic brain injury. And the lab report prepared February of this year stated that the white matter that forms the wiring deep in the brain had severe damage, and in some areas of his brain were literally missing entirely.
Wow.
His delicate tissue sheaths that insulate each biological circuit lay were in clumps. Further reading that our Congress, quote unquote, has been pushing the military in recent years to investigate whether blasts from repeatedly firing heavy weapons in the military can cause brain damage. But the military has proceeded at a halting pace that has yielded few changes in the field. There are certain bases, however, that are trying to push the Army to pursue this study. For an example, quoting, similar concerns were raised at Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri in 2020. A small study funded by the Army examined the brains of new grenade and explosive instructors using PET scans. Now, the researchers found that before they started working around blasts, the instructors' brains looked completely healthy, completely normal. But follow-up scans just 5 months later showed that their brains was teeming with an abnormal protein that's associated with Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
That is
So-
totally, typically in zero presence for their young brains. I could read report after report after report indicating it's brain injuries. And the reason why I want to bring this out is because for all of you who may be listening that are struggling with PTSD and think that it's a weakness, I am the first one here to tell you that it is a brain injury, no different than any other injury that one can receive in war. And on that fact, let me share with you this statistic.
Well, number one, he wasn't even deployed. All he was a grenade specialist.
Right.
And so
Instructor.
Instructor. So he was never deployed. He spent his life
the last
teaching
8
people
years
grenade.
of his life,
Yeah.
for 2 weeks there at West Point, he was instructing cadets how to throw grenades.
Right.
Okay. Here's another terrible statistic. It was done by Brown University. The article was released in 2021, and the article is entitled "The Cost of War." And Brown University's study indicates that if you look at all the active military personnel that were deployed in this 20-year war, okay, if you focus on just those that were deployed in this 20-year war, approximately 7,000 died from battle wounds, flesh wounds, okay. But more than 5 times the number have come back and died by PTSD suicide.
Wow.
So
Yes.
what's that big
We
number?
are in a national security crisis. And, you know, it's my opinion that this is our most sacred responsibility as citizens of this country is to take care of our vets and our active military
Has
personnel.
it changed any? Has
No,
our
it's getting
government
worse.
Done
It's getting
anything
worse.
more?
You know, our government has thrown millions at this problem, but it's not pushing the pendulum at all. You know, and it, to me, it's simple things like a reintegration program. Okay, come on. It's simple things like having mental therapy as much as physical therapy
Right.
in the military. Our government knows it's a brain injury, and there's solutions. There are resources to heal the brain. Our government is not going forward with that.
Right.
There was a study there at Fort Bragg. Okay, let me find it.
Well, while she's looking for that, and I learned this from Gay, is that you look at World War II, everybody's coming back on a ship 2 or 3 months all together, decompressing together. You look at this last war.
Our son went
son-
from hostile territory back to Fort Bragg within 2 or 3 days.
And
During
so,
COVID, right?
During COVID.
During COVID. So they all signed a piece of paper. I'm okay, whatever.
That is not a reintegration program.
They get back, and next thing you know, my son's company, because the military moves around, all of a sudden you got one person going here, another person going there. So you get these people who didn't get to spend, other than that fight or flight time, they get back, and all of a sudden they get thrown into Kansas, wherever other base, and they may land there as a sole person who's got the flag on that show they've been in battle, and everybody else around them never been in battle. So you're sitting there by yourself
Right.
with the one, so they didn't have that time together to decompress. And that's the reintegration that Gay talks about. We don't do it.
Well, let's look at Vietnam, for instance. When they came back from Vietnam, they were
Hostility.
degraded.
Absolutely.
They were, I don't know how many men I spoke to, because I lived in California at the time and I worked at Travis Air Force Base.
Yes.
And they took their uniform off, threw it in the garbage,
Yep.
and put their civvies on and never told a soul where they had come from. Okay?
'Cause
Most
the
of these
treatment they would have
guys
received.
also had just come from a treatment facility because in Vietnam they were hooked on heroin. They were not allowed back into the States until they went through detox. And so their little introduction back to so-called freedom was walking the floor, drinking coffee for 3 days straight to get the heroin out of their system. Then they were slapped on a plane, brought back to California,
Yes.
and goodbye, thank you for your service.
And fed to the wolves,
Yep.
the protesters.
Yep.
Used, abused, and spit out.
Yep.
I just, apparently it's not getting any better.
No, it's not. In many ways, it is not. But let me emphasize that there is hope, and there are ways of healing the brain, and there is the ways of finally having sleep and finally not being so mad.
Yes, I think anger is one of the issues that, because of the shootings and domestic violence, you will find, I don't know what the stats say, but many domestic violence cases are former military. And
Yes,
so
my heart just cringes when I hear
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And-
How do you expect, like I say, going back to the 20-year war, and the 5 or 6 deployments, the 10 deployments,
exactly.
and you're fighting on your last bullet gets shot at you, shoot on a Friday, and next thing you know, Sunday you're sitting at the breakfast table,
Right.
with your children
It's
running,
not natural.
with your
It's
children
not
running
natural.
around, and everything like that.
It
and
should not be allowed.
And your wife's mad because you left your boots in the hallway.
yeah, I mean,
You
yeah,
know,
I mean,
and it's-
so it's just.
And
So
at Fort
do you-
Bragg specifically, for those who are listening who may have been stationed at Fort Bragg, I understand it's a term. When you get back from deployment and you're, let's say, very next day you're at Walmart buying diapers for your family. It's called a Mine F. I'll leave the rest up to your imagination. It is. The best way I can give an illustration for those who are civilians who've never been deployed or put on a tour to Vietnam is imagine if your tribe consisted of your family, your immediate family, all your siblings, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, your nieces and nephews, and you all lived in one house. And imagine in the middle of that night, there was an immensely horrific battle, fire, and you had the heat and the smoke and the flames, and you were trying to get all your loved ones out and survive. Some didn't. Some were taken away in an ambulance. And 10 minutes later, okay, let's go to the grocery store.
Yep.
You wouldn't do it. It's not natural.
No, it's not natural. No.
And a reintegration program needs to be mandatory 100% participation.
Do you think that one of the answers to this issue would be to go back to having a draft?
Oh, I am a mama that is adamant, okay, that if we have a war again, we have to have a draft. It is so unfair to put the burden on 1% of this nation. It is not fair.
Right.
It is not just. And the repercussions are great. We're seeing it now. We're now in this national security crisis because of this. It's unlike any other war. We cannot ask our brave warriors of our military branches to do it again without a draft.
Well, look what's happening now. We're seeing that, the Army's having shortfalls, the Air Force is having people enlisting.
Right.
Well,
I mean-
there's other reasons for that as well.
Well, yeah.
And a lot of it's political.
Oh,
It's-
absolutely.
It's not that our young people aren't willing to fight for the country.
Right.
I think a lot of people need to understand that. It's not that they're not willing to step up, but it's what the military has done to the soldiers is a lot of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge part. You
Absolutely.
talk about the reintegration. One thing I've seen is right now, like at Fort Bragg, if you're ETSing out of the service, you have to go through a process that shows you have gainful employment when you leave. They don't have anything for your mental stability. And that's kind of what you're talking about, the reintegration. Because a lot of these people, the military does what they call stop loss. Okay, you're due to get out next month. No, we need you to deploy, so we're doing a stop loss so you can't get out. So now you're going to stay in for another 9, 12 months and go into combat. And then when you get back, the next day you can start processing out, as long as you have a job, but we don't care if you're mentally stable. Okay.
Gosh.
And I mean, that's
Right.
the reality of what it is.
Right.
And it's not right.
No.
Right.
But
Getting out of the military is immensely difficult on I'll use the generic term soldiers, and I mean all military branches, is because they do feel so alienated because of the 1%. Here's the other part of that problem is they lose their tribe. I'll use that word tribe. They lose purpose. And talking about purpose, when you're deployed and you're assigned to a platoon, and those men and women to your left and to your right depend on you for their lives. I'm talking about purpose. I'm talking about royal purpose. And you lose that when you get out. So it's immensely difficult on our vets, unlike any other profession in this country.
Oh, yes.
It's
has
very
to be.
unique. So one important aspect for our vets is that they must continue with their tribe, however they can find it. May it be the American Legion. May it be
VFW.
VFW.
I mean, it comes, my wife and I and Steve and plenty of us, we love our country. We love our military. We want to do whatever we can to keep us protected, keep our businesses going, And we need the military, and we need the
Yeah.
government helping.
Yeah. To be
now,
honest with
that's an
you-
oxymoron sometimes. I'm the government. I'm here to. That was what Reagan? The Reagan joke. Yeah.
To be honest with you, I was part of the 10 on our staff that went door to door knocking on Southport mom and pop shops asking for donations. In addition to when I'd be told no and I'd leave just bawling because I took it so personal.
Yeah.
You know, I'd also would think, I'd say, if our country ever becomes historic, and I mean, what's the word? Totally wacky, complete loss of civility. I would love to say,
You mean like now?
oh, Army, ignore that. Ignore that mom and pop shop because they didn't donate to our Stop Soldier Suicide.
But here's the thing, though.
I take it so personal.
Maybe that business is struggling and they really can't afford it.
I
not that
say
they
that
don't
to
want to.
myself.
Yeah,
I say that
yeah.
to
You know,
myself.
And I've
And
seen
let
that
me
before.
emphasize, Southport and St. James Plantation, we give millions back to this county.
Yep.
And so because of that, we have so many fundraisers. And I'm telling you, I have to say, the mom and pop shops of Southport are targeted constantly
Yes, they are.
for funds.
They are.
Contributions.
Yep.
Of all
they
sorts.
continue to give. You know, we have
Yes,
three,
and they still continue to give.
And but the thing is, if they give to one cause, then they feel obligated to give to all of them because it's not
Yeah.
that one is more important than the other.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Because
so-
because the three big that St. James and Troon does for a golf tournament are all military, and we I'll guarantee you close to $400,000 or $500,000 in a 6-month period that the community is giving back to the military.
Yes.
So that's one of the great things about North Carolina. I tell you,
Yeah.
we are so
are
military. We're
pro-military.
pro-military and pro-U. I mean, it's just a great thing.
And
for
we're
us.
on that note, we're going to take a little break and pay a few bills. And stay with us, folks. We'll be right back. Conservative leadership is working in Brunswick County, the 5th lowest tax rate in the state, supporting veterans and law enforcement, expanding water and sewer infrastructure, successful job recruitment efforts to bring good jobs to Brunswick County. Vote to keep Brunswick County Commissioners Frank Williams and Mike Forte, 2 lifelong conservative small business owners working hard for us. Paid for by the Frank Williams Committee and the Committee to elect Mike Forte. What a great place we all call home. From colorful sunsets to panoramic coastal views. The best attractions are its people, a community of friends and family. J.K. Summers, attorney at law, recognizes this fact and is proud of his work to protect their rights. Put your trust in him to prepare wills and trusts, real estate transactions, contract and LLC creations, and criminal, traffic, and civil matters. Visit oakislandlaw.com or call 910-253-5572. J.K. Summers, attorney at law.
Veteran Awareness sponsored by You Are Not Alone. Today's veteran homeless rate is approximately 19,750, and the numbers are declining because of the various veteran programs. If you or a veteran you know is homeless, please call 877-4AID-VET. This is a confidential and toll-free call. From this veteran to other veterans, please be there to help our brother and sister veterans. Again, the number is 1-877-424-3838. And thank you for your service.
Welcome back, everyone, to All Things Brunswick. We've had a great show this evening, our second in a segment of a very worthwhile cause, stopping soldier suicide. We have with us some great folks. I'm going to turn it back over to Gay and let her give us a few more informational pointers on this particular subject.
Thank you, Mary. In closing, I have a plethora of resources, but I'm just going to list 4. For the active military or vets that are out there that are looking for ways of getting help, to finding a tribe, to having a sense of belonging, to know that you're not alone in this. Veterans American Legion, Post 543. Google them. They're a great resource of resources as well as camaraderie with vets.
Right.
Equestrian therapy. Equestrian is a great resource of helping one who struggles with PTSD. Here in Brunswick County, there's an organization called At Liberty Connections. Google them. There's 2 organizations in Wilmington that provides camaraderie as well as adventure therapy, which is proven to help the brain. One is called freedomselling.org. Google them. They provide selling and camaraderie there out of Wilmington. Another resource is an organization entitled Project SOAR, SOAR. They're also out of Wilmington. They provide adventure therapy and camaraderie among active military and vets. Things like golf and yoga and surfing and scuba, archery, fishing, selling, etc.
Great.
And lastly, StopSoldierSuicide.org. Look them up for 100% free, 100% confidential counseling.
And I cannot tell you, folks, how happy I've been to have you with us to share
Thank you, Mary.
with our audience your heartbreak, obviously, and the fact that you are going forward and doing something so good for our soldiers.
It's the least we can do for them.
Along with Steve, I'm still referring to as the #1 volunteer.
Yep, he's our president.
He's our Southern Brunswick County president.
What can I get you to say to our audience,
So,
Steve?
Mary, I've been told that I've got an accent, and it's not a local accent, but
It certainly isn't.
Haven't noticed.
But again, we want to thank the local community and the storefronts that have supported us as we've talked to people. We talk about suicide. We're specific to veteran and soldier suicide, but there's a lot of lives that have been touched by suicide. And donations start at $25 if you would. Could be a gift basket, could be a gift card, but they recognize that this is a problem and that this is a way to help us help others. We like to say that we're trying to save lives. I also want to thank Senator Budd's office and Congressman Greg Murphy's office for taking the time to meet with us, to use their email distribution list to help to create awareness for Stop Soldier Suicide to the constituents in North Carolina and in their districts, because they have a large number. If we can reach 1%, we can move the needle. We can't eliminate suicide, but we can certainly reduce the numbers. And it'd be a miracle if we could say that the issue of veteran suicide is no longer an issue. That's not going to happen.
No.
The dose
But
of
what
reality.
you folks are doing is so worthwhile.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So worthwhile.
And all we can do is keep trying to move the needle. And we look forward, and we'll have a link on your website that can lead people to what we're trying to do. And if you're interested in helping, we'll be more than willing to help you.
Great. And I will be putting that out on our page. And you know, folks, I'd love to have you back. Maybe sometime short period of time before your actual fundraiser. You can come back on the show, tell me what progress has been made, and give our audience a few pointers on where to go and what to do.
Sounds
So
good.
once again, I thank you so very much for joining
you,
us.
Mary.
Mary,
Todd?
Mary and Todd, thank you very much for the opportunity.
And thank you, Todd, for sitting in with me again. I appreciate you.
Anytime.
And folks, please join us back on All Things Brunswick. We are changing our format. We have a new company, so to speak. I'm going to get all that information out. We need you as our audience. We target Brunswick County, but we like to fulfill everything in the general Cape Fear area. So please go to my page or go to Facebook page, All Things Brunswick, and make some comments. Let me know what you think. And have a great week. We will see you soon. Good night.